As part of the Express Yourself media seminars, we put together a documentary filmmaking seminar. We had 4 amazing guests: Steve Warren, Natalie Van Den Dungen, Dennis Smith and Matt Bate, that told us about doco filmmaking from idea to distribution. Our guests had a lot of tips to give budding doco filmmakers.
I always ask people when they're sort of pitching to me, is I say to them, how much of this story has already happened? It's a great question. And how much of this story is yet to happen?
The first thing they shared with us was the importance of a good subject.
It's not that difficult to come up with a subject, a potential subject for a documentary. For goodness sake, you can make a documentary about just about any subject you care to know. A lot of things come from sort of chance encounters where you strong characters, can be very appealing and make you kind of want to know more about them. What don't you know that you're going to kind of go on a journey on and try to find out in the course of making this? And sometimes they've never even thought about that. Well, big tip, think about it. It's a fantastic thing to think about, because if there's nothing that you don't know already, I would say don't bother making the doc.
Natalie told us about where her idea for Persecution Blues Battle for the Tote stemmed from.
Intuition or gut instinct that I needed to film that place. I didn't know why. I figured it would work. I'd find out later, and that kind of happened. I'd forgotten how amazing the music scene was here, and when I came back it was flourishing, and straight away was at the Tote and thought it was worthy of its own documentary.
But the real thing is, okay, we know what the subject is, but what is the story?
Steve and Dennis told us how important shape and structure are to creating a good doco.
The shaping of the story, that's in many ways the most important thing.
If you think about it, the order of the questions actually is a reflection of the shape. Not just simply the questions you want to ask, but what those questions are and what order they go. These things are all connected, and so once you actually get into those questions, it's not as if you're just sitting there and grilling a person, you're beginning to construct a film.
The more research you do in advance, this is before we even start rolling the camera, the more research you can do in advance, arguably the more interesting might the questions be. It's easy to get people who watch stuff who are already kind of interested in the subject. It's a much bigger challenge to get ones who are not. And it's that shaping that's going to help that happen. You can maybe get them in and they won't press the remote after 5 seconds. They'll think, oh, you know what, there's something that's driving me here. Listening is so important. You so much need to listen to the answers, because that's when it'll often trigger, you want a bit more information about that, or that takes us over here. And that's often, very often, when a lot of magic can start.
Steve and Dennis went through the importance of forming good relationships with your subjects.
Personally, one of the reasons that I've found documentary so fascinating and have stayed at it and not moved anywhere else is because you do form a bond with the people that you make films with.
The more that you can actually spend some time with those subjects and really get to know them and sometimes follow them over time, the more you develop it's just like I always say this, it's exactly like a relationship. Just forget filmmaking for a minute. You've got your kind of one night stands and you've got the things in between and you've got your long-term relationships and what have you, but it's actually not that dissimilar.
One of the things that I always say to documentary makers is that the first thing you need to establish with your subject is what's in it for them. And then that gives you a better understanding of why you're both there.
You need to put some effort and some time to really kind of develop a substantial rapport relationship with another. And that's when sort of, some magic can come, but also, of course, sometimes things can go hideously pear-shaped, like it's all in the same territory. It's all kind of moving like that. Things start to get interesting when some little cracks start to appear, and maybe you actually get the feeling, quite often you can just feel it. You can feel it, that there's something being said right now, probably for the first time ever, by this person, and it's a magical moment, and boy, as a filmmaker, you know when that's happening, and it is so exciting.
I think it's just filmmaking. I think that we're free to do that kind of thing. We're free to have an opinion, and that opinion, as long as it is ethical and it is not distorting the truth, is storytelling. Truth is very, very slippery, and whose truth is more truer than is just a road to nowhere. So it's an interesting question.
We briefly went through funding, and Natalie told us about her experiences as a first-time filmmaker.
And I was first-time director, in the long form. I thought, well, no one's going to give me funding, so I'll just do it myself. Part of me actually didn't want to get any money. I mean, enough to sort of pay people, but I didn't really want to owe anyone any money. I was blown away that we got funding at all. But it's definitely, I would say it's very difficult as a first-time director with getting funding. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. It's not exactly the most pleasant experience I've had.
You'll notice that it's very, very difficult to get funding. That often people want to see track records and the same people will get that money. How do you get a piece of the pie? It's very, very difficult. I think one of the important things to think about when you make a production company, a form of production company, is how do you make money as a filmmaker? We always had like a commercial arm to our business. So we would make, TVCs, we'd make corporate videos, we, dabbled with the devil in the corporate sector. I've always been really proud that I've never had to get a job, like a corporate job.
One of the things that I would have done differently in my scenario is I would have gotten a mentor attached, someone who'd gone through the funding process as a director, particularly. It's different for every department, but I think that's what I would have done.
One of the keys to directing is to make decisions. And I think one of the problems that student directors have is that they think they have to make the right decision. You don't have to make the right decision, you just have to make a decision. And the reason I say that is because if you don't make a decision, the process freezes. And then the panic sets in, and after the panic comes the rot.
With any film, a drama or a documentary, you're going to live with it for like 2 years or longer. I mean, you need to be in love with it, I think, or obsessed by it.
Biggest mistake I've made, I don't know, maybe becoming a documentary filmmaker.
We thanked our 4 guests for sharing their insights into documentary filmmaking in Australia. For more information on the Express Yourself Media Seminar Series, visit the website.